The Japanese internment camps, a result of the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, brought conflict to America by taking Japanese Americans from their home and properties and forcing them to live behind fences in incredibly harsh conditions. After the war ended, the United States government compromised with the Japanese Americans by rescinding Executive Order 9066 and providing compensations to the surviving interns. After the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, chaos erupted inside the United States. Suddenly, people of Japanese ancestry living in the U.S., regardless of age, gender, or loyalty, were suspects of treason. No one was safe. If you were Japanese, even if you were an American citizen, people might think of you as a spy. But why? Directly after Pearl Harbor, our society was faced with an incredibly difficult conflict to overcome. Our American ideals revolve around the belief that everyone, regardless of age or gender, should have freedom and an equal opportunity to succeed. When war broke out, racist elements in society led some to believe that Japanese Americans were plotting to sabotage American war efforts. Our ideals were betrayed, leading to great conflicts between the groups. Eventually, these fears affected our own president, Franklin D. Roosevelt. His administration was being increasingly pressured and asked to intern the Japanese Americans on the west coast of the country. The people pressuring Roosevelt were not simply racists, but also farmers who were willing to eliminate any competition no matter what the circumstances. The competition came through the Japanese growing crops near the farmers, which led to the farmers making less money. Also, the Japanese were taking up land, meaning that the farmers had less room to grow their crops. The Roosevelt administration came to terms with the problem. On February 19, 1942, Executive Order 9066 was signed. It ordered all Japanese Americans to evacuate the West Coast immediately.
It stated that now, therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in me as President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, I hereby authorize and direct the Secretary of War and the military commanders whom he may from time to time designate, whenever he or any designated commander deems such action necessary or desirable, to prescribe military areas in such places and of such extent as he or the appropriate military commander may determine, from which any or all persons may be excluded, and with respect to which the right of any person to enter, remain in, or leave shall be subject to whatever restrictions the Secretary of War or the appropriate military commander may impose in his discretion.
The Japanese American interns were impacted by this order in many ways. One way was that they were forced to leave their property.
George Taikai, who is not only a famous actor, but a survivor of the camps, stated, I remembered some people who lived across the street from our home as we were being taken away. When I was a teenager, I had many after-dinner conversations with my father about our internment. He told me that after we were taken away, they came to our house and took everything. We were literally stripped clean.
If the interns didn't leave their property, they would either be forced to sell it at a severe loss or lose it without getting anything for it. Many interns learned this the hard way when their property was lost while they were in the camps. They might have also been relocated increasingly further from their homes due to being sent to one of 10 different internment camps. These camps were located across Utah, Idaho, California, Arizona, Wyoming, Colorado, and Arkansas. There were 120,000 total interns, which means around 12,000 per camp. Also, 62% of the interns were U.S. citizens, meaning that they had rights protected by the Constitution, which were violated. This also created a major conflict. When in the camps for long periods of time, interns wouldn't have access to their work. Because of that, many interns got fired and didn't have enough money to support their families when they got back from the camps. That being said, they did have an option to work within the camps. The problem was that the interns could only make about $12 per month, which didn't help them with their financial conflicts. Many Japanese Americans were enraged by their internment. The interns were furious because they were not given the basic rights clearly stated in the Fifth Amendment of the Bill of Rights. They were as loyal as white Americans, yet were not given the same rights or freedoms. Not only did the camps interfere with the interns' economic stability, but their social aspect of life was also taken away.
George Taikai described what he woke up and saw every morning. Yes, I remember the barbed wire and the guard towers and the machine guns, but but they became part of my normal landscape.
Older immigrants, also known as Isai, were no longer treated with traditional respect from their children, or Nisai, when the Nisai were given permission to work inside the camps. Not only did the Nisai work in the camps, but 5,589 of them renounced their American citizenships, only to be rejected by a federal judge who claimed you couldn't renunciate behind barbed wires. When the Nisai discovered that their renunciation had been declined, 3,600 of them joined the military. 22,000 more entered from outside the relocation zone to form the all-Japanese 442nd Regimental Combat Team. This unit won many decorations for the work that they did in Italy and Germany. The main reason this unit was formed was for the Nisai to prove their American loyalty. Some of their missions included the Mediterranean operations and also operations in Europe, like the Rhineland campaign and the Maritime Alps from November 21st, 1944 to March 17th, 1945. This is Jimmy Kanaya, who is a former member of this unit. Jimmy was originally a U.S. Army medic prior to him and his family being sent to an internment camp. But when the 442nd Regiment was being formed, Jimmy volunteered and got selected as a member.
I found out later that my father was going to take the whole family before the war back to Japan, with both my brother and sister. But then, prior to that time, I joined the Army, so my parents decided to stay in America and wait it out. But I dread to think that I didn't join the Army, that I might have been fighting for the wrong side. There was such a clamor against anything Japanese on the West Coast, and then of course they had rumors that they're going to be evacuated, but they didn't know where until they hastily constructed 10 internment centers inland, and at that point I realized that things were coming to a head. We have more reason to fight for our country and prove that we're more than loyal, so we had to go overboard. And we were really proud to be who we were, and to have a number and a name and a regiment that we had to uphold. And that was one reason why I think we took so many casualties.
As the war progressed, the concerns of the Japanese Americans were beginning to be heard by the Supreme Court, and the more loyal interns were pleading their case to return to their homes on the West Coast. As a result, early in the year of 1945, the interns with the most undisputed loyalty were permitted to return to the West Coast. However, it wasn't until March of the next year that the final camps were closed. Although the U.S. can never really make up for the awful things that they did to all those innocent people, the government did at least attempt to compromise with them by creating a law giving all lost property back to the interns in 1948. The government also distributed $20,000 in compensation to each camp survivor in 1988. It is estimated that approximately 73,000 people have or will end up receiving these payments. So, in the end, the government admitted that depriving the Japanese Americans of their constitutional rights was wrong, and the survivors got money and property. Although the government tried to clean things up by giving survivors these things, the interns will never get the reward that they deserve for being in those camps, for it was one of the biggest conflicts and violations of civil rights in the history of our nation.